Have you ever felt like your life just doesn't make sense? That you're stuck and you don't know how to get past the season you're in? If that's you, Ecclesiastes 3:11 is a verse that you need. In this verse, we see a challenge to see our lives through a different lens, through God's perfect timing. And it reminds us that even though life feels chaotic and out of our control, that God is working behind the scenes to work things out in a way that we can't fully comprehend. In this video, we're going to be diving into the powerful meaning found in Ecclesiastes 3:11 and see how it can transform our lives and our faith. So whether you're in a season of waiting, of growth, of even struggle, this verse has something for you today. And I believe if you take a few minutes to look at what this verse means, you will be encouraged. Let's start by looking at what it says. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. Before we look at what this verse means, I want to briefly look at the context in which we find these words. The book of Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon, and it's a book of poetry that offers wisdom to those who read these words. And much of the focus of this book is on helping readers develop a God-centered worldview. Ecclesiastes doesn't talk much about what God has done for us or even how to live out our faith. Instead, it talks about the limits of human reasoning and points people to God. Solomon points out how a life centered on self-indulgence ends up leaving us empty. It's only when we can remember our Creator that we can find a life of significance. In Ecclesiastes 3, the author is reflecting on how there's a time for everything, and that each season of life brings something different. And the challenge for us is to take our lives day by day and trust God. We should realize that God has put things together in a specific way, and our job is to trust Him. Ecclesiastes 3:11 speaks to the result of what will happen when we do this. So let's take a closer look at what this verse means. To help you better understand what Ecclesiastes 3:11 means, I've broken this verse down into 3 different sections. Solomon starts off with this phrase, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." The theme of this section is all about God's timing. And what Solomon is saying is that God will make all things beautiful or appropriate in its time. That means that God is in control and He will make all things right again. In God's time, the world will experience healing, peace, deliverance, and renewed purpose. From our perspective, God's timing doesn't always seem beautiful. It might seem hard to see how things can be going so wrong, yet be redeemed. But we cannot see what God sees. And the promise of the Bible is that one day everything will be made right. One day we will see what God has been doing, and our role now is to trust in Him. Solomon continues by saying, He has also set eternity in the human heart. And what he's saying here is that God has placed in everybody's heart a sense or a desire for something eternal. This desire is what sets us apart from other creatures on earth. We long for something that we can hope for here and now. And this is what causes people to search their whole lives for purpose and meaning. God has put this desire on our hearts to seek out something eternal. And this desire should lead us to Him and cause us to place our trust in Him as well. Solomon wraps up this verse by saying, "Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." See, Ecclesiastes 3:11 summarizes the author's whole argument in this section, that there's a time for everything. But when we place our hope in these seasons, we'll never be fully satisfied. What these seasons do is give us a glimpse of what God has done, and they point us to the hope that we can have in Him. And Solomon tells us that we cannot understand on this side of heaven what God has done and what He will do. And therefore our job should be to trust in Him in our current season. And we should look to eternity for our fulfillment in full. Ecclesiastes 3:11 points us to God's infinite ability to see all things in the past and all things in the future. Not only can He see it, but He has control over it, and He will make all things beautiful in the appropriate time. And I want to end by giving you 2 ways you can live out this verse in your life. And the first one is this: trust God in your current season. Each season of life brings joys and challenges, and some of the seasons we love and others we cannot wait to get out of. And as we walk through these seasons, it can be easy to lose sight of God. And in the good times, we can forget about God. In the difficult times, we ask why. And what we ought to do is to trust God regardless. We need to remember that God sees what we cannot. And the season we are in will not last forever. He will lead us through. He has put eternity on our hearts, and those seasons, good or bad, should lead us to a place of trust in Him. The second lesson that we can pull from this verse is to keep our eyes forward. Ecclesiastes 3:11 reminds us that what God has for us is greater than where we are at right now. The things of this world should point us to Him rather than being our sole focus. For followers of Jesus, we must keep our eyes on God. The things of this life should be little reminders of what God has done for us and cause us to keep focusing on Him. So, don't get distracted by what is temporary. Rather, remind yourself that the temporary things should point you to what is eternal. Ecclesiastes 3:11 is a powerful reminder of what God has for you. The season you're in right now won't last forever, whether it's good or bad. The season will come to an end, but what God has for you is eternal. So trust Him in this life. Keep your eyes on Him no matter what you go through, and He will lead you to something that is far greater than what you can imagine. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it challenged and encouraged you to keep your eyes on God, and that you can see that what He has for you is greater than what you have now. If you would, leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date on future content that's coming out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.